Hello, everyone, and welcome to the presentation put on by the Office of Family Assistance and the Peer Technical Assistance Team. Performance-based contracting has been identified as a topic of interest for TANF agencies across the nation. We have Brian Anderson here with the Department of Children and Families, and he will be presenting about their TANF performance-based contract model. Brian, I'll let you go ahead.
Hello, Leah, and thank you for the introduction. Welcome to our presentation on Wisconsin's TANF performance-based contract model. We hope to inform you about its origin and features, the issues we had with our previous model, the challenges we faced, best practices which arose from them, and tools for implementing a performance-based contract model in your state. Let's begin our discussion of Wisconsin's performance-based contract model by looking at where we started from. Our state's TANF program is called Wisconsin Works, or W-2. W-2 is first and foremost an employment program. Our performance-based contract model grew out of our belief that everyone who can work should work and that cash assistance is not an entitlement. W-2 services include assessment, case management, job placement, and job retention. We target our services toward the state's most disadvantaged populations. Wisconsin does not have a separate program for participants with significant barriers to employment or two-parent families. We serve everyone, regardless of their disabilities. This map depicts the geographical service delivery structure of the W-2 program before implementation of performance-based contracts, when W-2 contracts were based on cost reimbursement. At that time, 38 contractors administered Wisconsin's W-2 services in our 72 counties. Some served a single county, while others served multiple counties throughout the state. Contractors consisted of county human and social service agencies, public for-profit and private not-for-profit service providers. And many of these counties subcontracted out the primary function of W-2 employment services. Milwaukee, the largest city, had 5 separate contractors. 61% of our caseload resides in Milwaukee. Before 2013, under the cost reimbursement model, contracts did not include performance standards for outcomes and process requirements. Agencies which met our performance standards earned right of first selection. This meant that the agency did not have to go through a competitive process in the next contract term. However, meeting or not meeting these standards did not affect agency payments. Contracts typically ran for 2-year periods. We began to see inefficiencies surface with the cost reimbursement model. First, we noticed cost inefficiencies. For example, there were extreme variations in the agency's cost per participant. Some large agencies had costs as low as $150 per participant per month. But smaller agencies could see costs as high as $1,850 per participant per month. Additionally, we saw inefficiencies coming from inconsistency in the proportion of costs allocated to W-2 in counties where facilities were shared with other programs. Second, the cost reimbursement model produced substandard outcomes because meeting outcomes was not incentivized. Moreover, there was extreme variation in agency outcomes. For example, at one point, only 12 of 38 contractors were meeting our job entry and performance earnings performance standards. 7 were meeting neither, and the rest varied widely. Third, the cost reimbursement model did not require contractors to refer participants to services consistently statewide. They were reimbursed regardless of outcomes or the number of participants served. We analyzed the degree to which eligible families on SNAP with no reported income were using our services. That analysis revealed that as few as 6% of eligible families in some rural counties were receiving TANF services. One survey, or our survey of potentially eligible TANF families, showed that agencies either had not informed them of the program or, in some cases, actively discouraged them from applying. What the data showed us was that the cost reimbursement model seemed to be rewarding agencies for lower caseloads. Despite our efforts, we were unable to eliminate behavior that seemed to be designed to discourage participation in W-2. Because the old contract model was not working in the best interest of our families or taxpayers, we needed to make a change. The solution? Implement a performance-based model. Because of the inefficiencies we saw in our previous model, we set specific expectations for the performance-based contract model, which included increased cost efficiencies, improved outcomes, and consistent access to services statewide. We expected the new model to provide services at reasonable costs, allowing funding to stretch farther. Additionally, we expected it to incentivize contractors to operate efficiently and effectively. Restructuring service areas, increasing agency size, would help us achieve economies of scale. Next, we expected the performance-based model to improve agency outcomes since it bases reimbursement on their success in finding participants jobs. In other words, to incentivize performance that reflects the overall goal of our program. Finally, we expected the new contract model to increase statewide program access to eligible individuals by eliminating incentives to underserve or discourage participation. This meant providing access to the full range of W-2 services an individual needed, regardless of where he or she lived. Let's examine the features of a performance-based contract model. To begin, let's look at the consolidation of geographic areas. Because it was apparent that small county agencies lacked resources to provide the same level of services as large ones, particularly those in Milwaukee, we restructured the service delivery area. Our redesign allowed us to go from 38 to 10 service areas, which enabled small rural agencies access to the specialized staff that only larger cities had. The 10 regions included 6 geographic areas in the balance of state. We should mention that in Wisconsin, the phrase balance of state describes all counties outside of Milwaukee County. Milwaukee went from having 6 geographic regions to 5. We used U.S. Census data to determine which areas contained the largest number of poor, then divided it up to ensure a consistent caseload throughout the county. A second feature of the performance-based model is its payment structure. Our model consists of 4 different types of payments: capitation, performance outcome, process outcome, and incentive. The goal was to shift the balance of payment away from capitation and more toward performance. Capitation payments are made monthly based on the number of participants served by a W-2 contractor. Performance payments are generated by participant outcomes, including job attainment or retention and SSI attainment. The percentage of the contract earned through performance outcomes increases by 10% each year as the capitation percentage decreases. Process outcomes include the timely processing of emergency assistance applications, serving non-custodial parents, and meeting the All Families Work Participation Rate numerator. Incentive outcomes include meeting a 50% work participation rate each quarter and participant completion of vocational or educational training programs. The performance outcomes are standard across the state. However, the attainment target, amounts, and payments per attainment are individually negotiated with each contractor to reflect differences in caseload, population, risk, geography, and labor market. A third feature of the performance-based model is longer contracts. The new model offers a 4-year instead of a 2-year contract. Longer contracts prevented disruption of service to participants and allows for continuity of operations. A fourth feature of the model is the adjudication process. Contractors must submit a claim to request payment for each performance outcome. Wisconsin developed a claim adjudication process to verify them. Our contract clearly defines what constitutes evidence of an outcome, the documentation required to support it, and the timeliness of the claim necessary before making a payment. All payment terms and conditions relating to both capitation and performance payments, as well as the adjudication process, were included in the contract. Additionally, our contract allows for performance payment recoupment, as well as penalties for contractors who provide incorrect information. Should you decide to implement a performance-based contract, you may encounter some challenges. We would like to highlight a few we encountered to help you anticipate ones you may face. We've divided these challenges into two categories, state and contractor. One state challenge lies in confronting potential political roadblocks. While we were able to move forward with the change in contract model, depending on the political climate in your state, you should be prepared for potential roadblocks and be proactive in establishing a case for change. You will hear more about this when we talk about best practices a little later. A second state challenge involves meeting the resource demands of this model. In our case, over 50 staff members helped facilitate the change to a new model. One vital resource being staff time, other projects and priorities had to be sidelined in order to make this transition a success. As early as 2011, we created work groups which focused on contracts, performance outcomes, automation, monitoring, training, and reporting. Additionally, the creation of documents and manuals was also resource-intensive. A third state challenge we encountered was that bidder response was subject to limits imposed by geography. During the bidding process, some geographical areas had a surplus of bidders, while others had a shortage. Sparsely populated rural areas had fewer contractors interested in providing services. That is why we ended up with one contractor serving 3 geographical areas. A fourth state challenge is that, while caseload projections are extremely important, they are at best guesstimates. We have identified several ways to estimate caseload using internal program factors as well as external economic conditions. We use a combination of methods in order to predict potential caseload fluctuations. In the end, we know our projections are still just guesstimates. Projecting caseloads is difficult. For this reason, one contractor challenge is caseload changes. Because of a post-recession hiring increase, Wisconsin's TANF caseload was declining prior to 2013. When we first implemented performance-based contracts, some agencies saw dramatic jumps in their caseloads, as high as 15%. This resulted from increased access to the program in balance of state. Ultimately, caseloads declined as the economy improved, but at the end of 2014, Wisconsin's TANF caseload was still significantly higher than pre-implementation levels. A second contractor challenge came from the fact that existing contractors and their partners had advantages in resources, staff, and facilities which new contractors lacked. Therefore, existing contractors were able to make the transition more quickly and economically. A third challenge for contractors was establishing a workable time frame to implement the new contract model. As Wisconsin transitioned to performance-based contract, we realized that the process would call for infrastructure and system changes, requests for proposals, new contracts, and other tasks. Contractors should not underestimate the complexity of transitioning and should allow sufficient time for the process to evolve. Although we're still analyzing the shift to a performance-based contract model, we identified some preliminary findings which indicate that it's helping us reach our goals. One success we've seen is the number of participants who get jobs. Specifically, the percentage of W-2 participants who started an unsubsidized job expected to last longer than 30 days increased statewide from 27% of the total caseload to 35% from 2011 to 2014. This job start rate was approximately the same for Milwaukee and the balance of state in this period, suggesting that the performance-based contract model was effective regardless of the contract agencies serving the participants. A second success is that costs are down. Recall that our cost per case per month in the old model ranged from $150 to $1,850 in 2011. In 2014, the range was between $165 and $286. In addition, the average cost per case per month went from $304 in 2011 to $201 in 2014. This represents a 34% reduction in the Department of Children and Families expenditure per W-2 case statewide. A third success is that participants have increased access to services. Participant access to the W-2 program improved over 10% in the balance of state from 2011 to 2014. Although we saw a slight decline in program access in Milwaukee, we were not as concerned since access to services was primarily an issue in balance of state. As we've said, these are preliminary findings. We'll continue to analyze data trends to determine additional impacts of the contract changes. As we addressed our challenges, we developed best practices. Some of the best practices that have emerged are: 1, start planning early. Remember that planning and implementation took 2+ years. The earlier you start, the smoother the transition. 2, use data to drive decisions. Almost every aspect of the process of moving to a performance-based model relied on data analysis. To be sure, data guided our decision-making, but it also played a vital role in developing the need for change, ensuring buy-in from the administration and preventing political roadblocks. The types of data used included such measures as past performance standards and caseload trends. 3, gather evidence to influence your administration. As we've said, one of the most influential tools you have for promoting change is data, particularly the kind that helps identify cost efficiencies and improve service delivery. 4, understand you will make changes along the way. Be flexible. Build in performance outcomes that can provide financial flexibility for changes that agencies have no control over, such as economic improvement, caseload reduction, and population changes. Each contract year, we update performance outcomes, improving some, adding or eliminating others. This gives us flexibility to adapt to challenges from prior years. However, we resisted the urge to make wholesale changes as we continue to evaluate the results of the changes. 5, don't lose sight of core program goals. In Wisconsin, the goal of our TANF program is to help participants find jobs. Redesigning the service delivery areas and implementing performance-based contracts gave us the opportunity to revisit our primary mission. We were able to remove remnants of a welfare philosophy in order to focus on job readiness, placement, and retention, and remove functions that don't fit with these goals. All agencies, regardless of location, have the same functions and responsibilities, making W-2 a statewide program. 6, create outcomes that incentivize contractors to meet program goals. For W-2, those goals were job placement and retention. Because we also understand that changes are necessary along the way, each year we have tweaked the performance outcome payments to incentivize contractors to meet other goals. For example, we built in performance outcomes that help improve the work participation rate. When you're ready to use a performance-based model in your state, you will need tools and resources. We're going to share tools we created and encourage you to have specific resources already in place. Let's look at some tools you can create, paying particular attention to specific documents. A payment structure document explained in detail the performance outcomes, conditions for meeting the outcomes, instructions for entering claims, and the process for submitting them. Contractors must follow and complete all required steps in order to receive payments. This standardizes the payment structure for all contractors. It is incorporated by reference into the contract. Maps, as you saw earlier, outlined changes to geographic regions. Maps proved particularly helpful when defining service areas within Milwaukee based on U.S. Census data. Flowcharts helped us visualize service delivery process, eliminate functions unrelated to employment, streamline processes, and map out contractors' responsibilities. Spreadsheets helped us analyze, sort, and calculate data in an effort to make specific decisions during the transition, including contractor maximum budgets, caseload predictions, and so on. We developed bid sheets in order to negotiate payments. Contractors submit a new bid sheet each year. This spreadsheet identifies their maximum budget divided into 4 sections: capitation, outcomes budget, outcome summary, and total summary. A calendar of claim payments allows contractors to know when they will receive capitation and performance outcome payments. The scheduled dates do not change. We have examples of all these documents that we would be willing to share upon request. We also created instructions manuals as tools. We began by creating an adjudication process manual. It provides a specific instruction to state adjudicators on how to handle a claim for payment, beginning with the contractor's submission of a claim and ending with payment or denial. It gives instructions on how to navigate and use specific functions within different state automated systems. It also describes the claims appeal process, making it a critical tool for ensuring that contractors understand the requirements of each claim. The second manual we created, the Adjudication Quality Management Plan, is important because it ensures that the adjudicator's work is accurate and thorough, and that contractors are paid correctly for outcomes. Now that we've looked at tools you can create, let's turn to resources we suggest you have in place before implementing a performance-based contract model. 4 resources were critical to this endeavor. First, we suggest you have robust automated systems. Wisconsin has a comprehensive eligibility and case management system. We use an electronic case file system. These resources gave us access to vital data for decision-making. We were able to update these systems to allow for online entry of performance outcome claims. This facilitated quality checks on each claim and ensured they had acceptable documentation. In addition to our data entry system, we have a data warehouse structure that we use to extract data and create reports. Our system in Wisconsin is called Web Intelligence, or WEBI for short. Second, we suggest you have training resources. Training can include explaining new program policies and requirements, how to use reports, changes to automated systems, technical training on how to submit payments, claims, and so on. Third, we suggest you have a help desk service. The W2 Help Desk assists in resolving systems-related issues such as processing applications and managing cases. The help desk also responds to customer service calls and works with contractors to resolve issues with customers. Finally, we suggest you have a forum for regular communication between state and contractors. Under the new contracts, we required agencies to have specific state liaisons, including coordinators for policy, automation, training, and fraud. In addition, we require bi-monthly meetings which provide opportunities for exchanging ideas between contractors, timely notification of any program changes, responding to program changes, identifying issues, exploring solutions, and making recommendations for improvements. We communicate to our contractors using both contract and policy changes using a formal memo process. When contractor payments are based on performance, it is critical that communication is official, clear, and concise so that they fully understand performance expectations. So there you have it, Wisconsin's TANF performance-based contract model. We hope that you've learned more about it, what moved us to adopt it, the solutions we developed, challenges we faced, best practices, and resources for implementing performance-based contracts in your state. If you have any questions, we're here to offer feedback. Contact information is on the following slide. Thank you for the opportunity to share in Wisconsin's success.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. And this concludes our presentation. Once again, on behalf of the Peer Technical Assistance Team and the Office of Family Assistance, we want to extend our sincerest appreciation to the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families for taking the time to create this presentation and present it, and thank you for attending. Have a great day.